Hi guys, how are you doing? I am back with another reaction video. This one is the Tuxedo Princess and Royale Tyneside Floating Fun Ships. This is by A Touch of Tyne channel, so check them out. Before I begin, please make sure to like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. So here we go.
Dad used to bring us here when we were kids. Used to watch the ships. Only ship here these days is a bloody disco.
For almost 25 years, a huge former car ferry sat under the Tyne Bridge, not as a ship, but as one of the North East's most iconic nightclubs. The Tuxedo Princess, and later the Tuxedo Royale, became known across the region simply as the boat.
And later on, the Floating Nightclub.
Hosted TV stars, musicians, football heroes, and even sparked plans for a floating hotel and an onboard swimming pool. For a generation growing up in the 80s and 90s.
So that land now is taken up by a pub conglomerate. I've forgotten the name, but I've been there a few times. It's not as good as it was before, because when I began going out, it was in the early 2000s as an 18-year-old, and the boat was there at the time, and it was fantastic. It had several bars on board, and then you went downstairs. You had this massive nightclub with a revolving dance floor, and 2 or 3 bars, lots of seating. It was fantastic. I miss it. I do. I miss the boat very much. It was a very unique selling point. There was no other floating nightclub in Newcastle, and there still isn't to this day, unfortunately.
These ships helped define the North East nightlife and identity. Today we're looking back at their glory years, how a car ferry ended up with a revolving dance floor, the story behind the 2 famous boats, and which 1980s celebrity was headbutted on board the Tuxedo Princess. In the early 80s, Newcastle and Gateshead were changing fast, heavy industry was collapsing, shipyards were shutting, and nightlife and leisure were becoming the new frontier. One person right at the centre of that change was Michael Quadrini. Quadrini started out selling ice cream before moving into nightlife and opening Tuxedo Junction, just as disco was taking off. Tuxedo Junction on Market Street was considered an upmarket spot with table television.
Now I have no idea where that was, or where it resides now. Well, it doesn't reside now. It doesn't exist now. But what I'm trying to say is I don't know where that location is. Because again, I didn't go out clubbing and go to the bars till the early 2000s. So from my personal perspective, the 2000s were the best decade for going out for a night out. Drinks were cheap, everything was cheap. I could pull out 30 quid out of the hole in the wall, and it would last me all night. Today, it's more like 70 or 80 quid for a night out now in Newcastle. As with all things now, things are getting expensive, and it's really sad that this country has just gone downhill the way it has. There used to be a bar in Newcastle called Idols, and I used to be able to go in there for £1. I used to pay £1 to go in, and then the drinks were £1 all night. Those were the days. That would never happen now, unfortunately, because bars have become, I would say, greedy, because they've gentrified most of the bars in Newcastle, and to pay that back, they need to up the prices in the bars. So it's really sad that how Newcastle's gone downhill in the last 20 years, because it was fantastic as an 18-year-old going out in the town There was no camera phones, there was no social media. It was a great time.
Telephones to chat up people across the room, champagne dining, strict dress codes, and even the occasional royal visitor. But Quadrini wanted something bigger, something that would outclass any venue in Newcastle and compete with the London club scene. That ambition set the stage for the region.
Now this boat, the first boat that came under the Tyne Bridge, I've actually been in there as a child. My grandparents were they were dining in that boat, and because I was with them at the time, I had to dress a certain way, and it was very, very fancy back then. But fast forward 15 years later, it was not as posh anymore. It was more of a casual, you walk in with casual, dressy sort of clothes, but it was far laid back than it was back then. And I'd pay maybe £4 to get in, and then you'd walk in, there'd be a bar straight ahead of you, and then you'd walk through some doors, and there'd be another bar, a themed bar, like a Mexican sort of theme bar, and then you'd go downstairs, and that was where the nightclub was.
Region's first floating nightclub. The first ship was the TSS Caledonian Princess, built in 1960.
I don't recall that one, but I was referring to the 1990s when I was a kid, when I first went on board with my grandparents. So this is before my time, I'm guessing.
Won by William Denny and Brothers in Dumbarton. For 20 years she worked as a Sea Link roll-on roll-off ferry on routes like the Stranraer Lawn and across the Irish Sea. Originally the Princess had a turntable on the vehicle deck used to rotate trucks for disembarking. Quadrini saw it and realised he could turn it into a revolving dance floor, the feature that made the Princess famous.
I've had a few good times down in the club there with the turning dance floor, and one time I got so drunk that I almost fell off it. But this was common practice, of course. Back then, people would get drunk and they would go on the dance floor and they'd fall off, or they'd lose their footing. It was great. It was absolutely great.
Retired from ferry service in 1981, she was
If I had a time machine, I would go back to the 1980s or 1990s and see what it was like back then, the nightlife. People, they would talk to each other, they would have a laugh. Today, people are on their phones too much. They're too heavily reliant on the internet, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook. Back when I started going out, we didn't have that, and it was fantastic. People actually talked to each other, danced, had fun. There's no sort of care in the world that if you made an ass of yourself on the dance floor, no one cared. No one cared. But now, if you get too drunk on the dance floor, you're going to be filmed, you're going to be humiliated. I really want to go back to those times. They were the best times. Best decades.
Purchased by Quadrini, stripped out, refurbished and reopened in December 1983 under the south side of the Tyne Bridge as the Tuxedo Princess. Quadrini had planned to moor the Princess on the Newcastle side, but planning permission forced him to the Gateshead bank, meaning customers had to walk over the swing bridge to get there. The Princess quickly stood out. She had multiple bars, restaurant areas, 2 dance floors and a strict dress code. People with visible tattoos were even turned away. Staff warned.
The downside of the board being taken away was the renovation of Ikon, which was then made into Liquid Envy. And when that happened, their sort of clientele, sort of, chav people would go to the boat, and that drove up prices. So in 2006, when me and my friend went there, we were surprised to find out that the entry fee had increased a lot, to the point where we thought it's not worth going in anymore. That was the sad decline of the boat. And And that sort of area as well, you had Buffalo Joe's, you had Baja in the boat. And back before all this happened, it was fantastic. The Gateshead side, it was fantastic night out. You could even go across the quayside to the Newcastle side and have a few drinks on the quayside most of the night. Now it's a shell of its former self, unfortunately. But yeah, the boat was fantastic back then in the mid-2000s. It was the place to go to at the end of the night. We'd go to Baja and Buffalo Joe's, and then we'd head to the boat, and that was it. After that, we'd go home. You could spend most of the night on the quayside back then. Now you can't. It's all gone, unfortunately.
Naval-style uniforms. She appeared in TV series like Our Friends in the North, Or Vida St. Pet and Spender, becoming one of Gateshead's most recognisable landmarks.
This boat brought a lot of celebrities onto it. I recall Tini Mallet, who was the presenter of TVEM's Wackaday. Yeah, there was a lot of celebrities on that boat. Even back in the 2000s, there was some events going on where you'd be able to meet your celebrities. Yeah, it was a great time. Great time. I mean, the kids today would have no idea of this boat and how great it was to be on that boat. It was a unique experience, and I miss it. I miss it a lot.
Through the 80s and 90s, long queues would form along the gangplank, stilettos dodging the metal grates as everyone picked up their boarding passes. Students, yuppies, celebrities, sports stars all turned up. Among the best known guests, Rose Royce, Ian Beale from EastEnders, Kevin Keegan, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Mick Hucknall, Gaza, Miss World, and Noel Edmonds. In 1985, bass guitarist of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Mark O'Toole, suffered a suspected broken nose in what the press described as a fracas following being headbutted on board the Princess. He was forced to appear in heavy makeup for TV filming the next day. The band were later invited back by Quadrini for a makeup party in the VIP section to show there were no hard feelings. By the early 90s, the Princess was pulling in around £2 million a year, back when drinks cost about £1. Thousands of people packed the boat on busy nights. Of course, there were the occasional man overboard incidents, and the dress code was so strict, one man was caught trying to lend his trousers to a mate, resulting in both.
Even when I was on the boat in the mid-2000s, there was reports of people falling off the boat, and that happens when people have too much to drink. It must have been really, really freezing though to be in the Tyne. There's been many occasions of people falling in the Tyne, but yeah, it happens. People get drunk, people do daft things.
Being thrown out. But after just 5 years, in 1988, the Princess sailed off to Glasgow, following failed attempts to get her to London. Quadrini already had his eyes on a replacement. The second ship was originally the SS Dover. Built in 1965 by Swan Hunters in Wallsend, she had served under multiple names and roles: Dover, Earl's Seward, Sol Express, even taken part in the evacuation of the...
Now I believe this boat was the one that lasted all the way through to 2006 when it was towed away and taken to Middlesbrough, I believe, and then it was taken somewhere abroad where it just more or less sank in the river or sea, which was very sad to see, unfortunately, to see such a great boat go to waste. It was so sad. And again, when I heard that this boat was going to be taken away, it was very, very sad, because we loved being on this boat. On weekends, it was just the place to be. And again, it's iconic. Almost every single photograph online you'll see is this boat under the Tyne Bridge. So iconic.
Of the US Embassy in Beirut. Quadrini bought her in the late 80s. During the tour from Limassol, she actually broke free in rough seas and drifted for 7 days before being recovered. When the Princess moved to Glasgow in 1988, the new ship replaced her under the Tyne Bridge. After repairs and a full conversion, she opened in 1989 as the Tuxedo Royale. Quadrini had initially...
So 1989, this will have been the boat I went on as a child and also in my 20s. So yeah, this was under the Tyne Bridge for 20 odd years before it was towed away.
A full conversion, she opened in 1989 as the Tuxedo Royale. Quadrini had initially called it the Tuxedo Express, a nod to its former name, Sol Express, but probably decided it didn't sound classy enough, and the Royale was born. The Tuxedo Royale offered multiple themed rooms: the Commodore Suite, Admiral Suite, Club Europa, where most of the action happened, and Buzz Bar, where Metro FM's Dave Prever moonlighted and bands like The Real Thing played. There was also Berlin's Cocktail Bar, which pulled in around 10 grand a week. By then, European...
Now, despite my respect for this boat, because I had some great times on it, it was falling apart. It was looking a bit tired and a bit old. But we didn't really care at the time. We just had a good time on that boat. We had a good laugh. We got drunk on this boat. We had a good laugh on this boat. But on the outside, it was dilapidated and falling apart in some respects. It did look very, very old. But yeah, it had been there for 20 odd years at this point. Yeah, I miss this boat, I do. It was a great time. Yeah.
European Leisure, EL, owned the Royale, as well as Lucky's, Macy's, Masters, Madison's and President's. Quadrini had been forced off the board of EL after disputes over financial records at the Eldon Garden offices. The police were...
This was the bar that you walked into from the entrance. You'd pay. I think I paid like something like £3 or £4 between 04 and 05 before the chavs took over and it made it more expensive. This was the bar that we knew at the time. You'd walk in, there'd be several little bars dotted around, and yeah, you little dance floor, and it was very retro looking. Yeah, this is the one that I recall.
Although he still owns significant shares. In 1991, the Royale spent a month under house arrest by customs officers, although customers were completely unaware as the nightclub business continued to operate. Relations deteriorated badly.
This was the entrance. We'd go up the stairs, and this is the entrance itself. This is where we'd pay our entry fee. And then further along is that bar we just saw before.
EL even proposed secretly moving the Royale to Southampton, but Quadrini vowed to open an even better boat if they tried. Meanwhile, the original Princess in Glasgow was in a terrible condition, closed and up for sale. Fewer than 10 years after the floating nightclub dream began, things were collapsing. 2 ships in limbo, massive debts, failing leases and shareholder warfare. In 1992, EL folded and put the Royale up for sale, and Quadrini threatened to buy it back. He even left a briefcase in the office to secretly record former employees trying to take money from the struggling company. He finally regained the boat in May 1992, buying back the business and promising to take it up market again. By 1990,
you'd think a boat that's making thousands of pounds a week would not struggle. I mean, this guy was in charge of the whole operation, and yet he was in debt. He had to sell the boat and buy it twice. I didn't know all of this. I didn't know any of this at the time. But again, I was a guy in my 20s having fun in town, as you do.
1994, he even had a £1 million tax bill overturned. The tax office had argued that a moored ship on Crown property should still pay business rates. By the late 90s, plans emerged to move the Tuxedo Royale to Middlesbrough.
I believe the council wanted to put a car park where the Tuxedo Princess is and charge people to park. That was their motivation to remove the boat in the first place. And when that did happen, when the boat moved, it remained empty for years until a new bar was built in 2018, I think, or 17. So the council wanted to get rid of this boat. I know that for a fact. But when the boat did leave and go to Middlesbrough, it was still empty for months and weeks and years. They were hell bent on getting rid of this boat to build a car park and make money.
Meanwhile, the Princess was to return from Glasgow due to repair work on a motorway bridge, bringing her back to her old home on the Tyne. The Royale received a £2 million refurbishment and reopened as the UK's first floating casino in Middlesbrough at the Millennium. It became a popular pre-match spot for Borough fans until it closed in 2006.
That was the company, Absolute Leisure, who owned the boat at the time. I remember that name. Obviously they had money troubles and that's why the boat was removed, I'm guessing. Or maybe the council pushed them. I don't know. But to have a floating nightclub on the Tyne, it was a unique selling point. And everyone came to that place. It was a unique experience that hasn't been replaced, unfortunately.
In 2009, its owners, Absolute Leisure, went into administration, leaving the ship decaying at Abel's docks in Middlesbrough, with debts of around 200 grand. With no funding or structure to maintain it, the vessel was hit by vandalism, theft.
What a shame. I knew this happened in Middlesbrough. It was just a crying shame. I don't know why they could have just moved it somewhere else. It was still profitable, it was still making money, it was still drawing in customers and punters. This is a very sad sight for me. This boat has a lot of memories, and to see it in that state, it just broke my heart. It really did.
And structural decline. Campaigners attempted to save her, as one of the last Steamlink UK steam turbine powered ships, even securing a spot on the National Historic Ships Register in 2016. But deterioration accelerated. In 2011, the ship developed a serious list. In 2017, a major fire caused severe damage, and by 2018, the port and the regulators agreed she had to be demolished. After asbestos removal, she was refloated and towed to Hartlepool in September 2019 to be dismantled, ending her story from 1965 to 2019. Meanwhile, back on the River Tyne, the Princess, the smaller of the two ships, had undergone a £2 million refit and prepared to reopen. There were delays due to asbestos.
Yes, well, there is actually still a floating nightclub of sorts. There's a boat that sails from the Tyne to Tynemouth and back, and it's got a bar downstairs and a nightclub upstairs. And I tried it once before and it was fantastic. It actually reminded me of the Princess, Tuxedo Princess. But it's not the same. So yeah, that's a great video by A Touch of Tyne. Do watch it, like it, subscribe. Great video. So there we go, guys. That's another reaction video. Please like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next one.